Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, we are diving into a story that has shaped the course of history for over 2,000 years, a story of ambition, survival, and the rise of one of the most influential civilizations the world has ever known, Rome. It is incredible to think that what began as a small cluster of mud huts on the banks of the Tiber River would one day grow to dominate the entire Mediterranean and leave a legacy that still echoes in our laws, architecture, and culture today. In the very beginning, Rome was far from the mighty empire we imagine. It was a fragile settlement, surrounded by older, wealthier, and more powerful kingdoms. By all accounts, it should have been wiped off the map. And yet, somehow, it survived. The story of Rome's origins is not just a tale of chance, it is a tale of geography, human ingenuity, and the determination of a small community to endure against all odds. The early settlers, simple farmers and herders, made their homes along the riverbanks and hills, building huts from timber and clay, tending small fields, and raising livestock. They spoke different dialects, worshipped local gods, and traded what little they had with neighboring communities. It was humble, uncertain, and often dangerous work, but it laid the foundation for something extraordinary. As we begin our journey, we will explore how these first settlers, through resilience and ambition, transformed a small riverside village into the heart of a civilization that would go on to influence the world for millennia. So, sit back, relax, and let us step back in time to the very beginning of Rome. As Rome's humble beginnings unfolded, the land around it played a crucial role in shaping its destiny. The Italian peninsula was unlike anywhere else in the Mediterranean. Mountains divided the region but never completely isolated its valleys. Rivers provided routes for travel and trade, and fertile plains allowed communities to sustain themselves. The Tiber River, flowing calmly through the heart of Italy, became the lifeline of early settlements, offering both water and a connection to the sea. Long before Rome became a city, several peoples lived across the peninsula, each contributing to the cultural landscape. Among them were the Latins, the Sabines, and the Etruscans. The Latins, settled in the central plains around the Tiber, were primarily farmers organized into small tribes and hilltop villages. The Sabines, hardy mountain dwellers, maintained a pastoral lifestyle and a reputation for resilience. Farther north, the Etruscans emerged as a sophisticated and mysterious civilization. They built well-organized cities, developed a unique written language, and created art and architecture that rivaled that of the Greeks. Their political systems, craftsmanship, and religious practices would deeply influence the early Romans. Meanwhile, Greek colonists arrived in southern Italy around the 8th century BC, establishing thriving communities that became centers of art, philosophy, and trade. They introduced new crops, technologies, and even a written alphabet that would eventually evolve into the Latin script. The interplay of these peoples, the Latins, Sabines, Etruscans, and Greeks, combined with Italy's strategic geography, created a patchwork of cultures and opportunities. This complex environment set the stage for a small riverside settlement to grow into a city destined for greatness. No story of Rome's beginnings is as captivating as that of Romulus and Remus, the twin brothers whose fate would shape an entire civilization. According to tradition, they were the sons of Rhea Silvia, a Vestal virgin, and Mars, the god of war. Born into a world of political intrigue, their great-uncle Amulus, fearing a rival claim to the throne of Alba Longa, ordered them to be killed. Yet fate intervened. The twins were placed in a basket and set adrift on the Tiber River, only to be discovered and nurtured by a she-wolf in a nearby fig grove. Raised by a humble shepherd, the brothers grew strong, resourceful, and ambitious. As they matured, they learned of their royal lineage and returned to Alba Longa to restore their grandfather to the throne. But their story did not end there. Seeking to build a city of their own, they disagreed over its location. Romulus favored the Palatine Hill, while Remus preferred the Aventine. The dispute escalated, culminating in tragedy when Romulus killed Remus, declaring that anyone who mocked or crossed the city's boundaries would meet the same fate. Romulus went on to found the city of Rome, naming it after himself, and establishing its first institutions. This myth, blending divine favor, rivalry, and destiny, became central to Roman identity. It emphasized that strength, courage, and resilience were essential traits for survival. While historians debate how much of the story is fact versus legend, archaeological evidence shows that settlements on the Palatine Hill did exist around 750 BC, aligning closely with the traditional founding date. The tale of Romulus and Remus remains a timeless symbol of Rome's origins, a city born from struggle, shaped by leadership, and destined to endure. After the legendary founding of Rome by Romulus, the city was ruled by a succession of 7 kings, each contributing to its growth, organization, and identity. These monarchs, a mix of Latins, Sabines, and Etruscans, laid the foundations of political, religious, and social institutions that would define Rome for centuries. Romulus himself established the city's first council, the Senate, and divided the population into tribes, creating a structure that combined governance with military organization. Following Romulus, Numa Pompilius brought peace and spirituality to the city. Revered for his wisdom, Numa created the Roman religious calendar, instituted priestly colleges, and formalized rituals that tied civic life to the favor of the gods. His reign demonstrated the importance of balance between order and devotion, ensuring the young city grew with a sense of moral and spiritual guidance. Subsequent kings, such as Tullus Hostilius, emphasized military conquest and expansion. Tullus waged wars against neighboring cities, integrating conquered peoples into Rome through citizenship and social inclusion, a strategy that became central to Rome's long-term growth. Ancus Marcius secured the city's access to the sea, building Rome's first bridge and port, while Tarquinius Priscus, the first Etruscan king, initiated large-scale engineering projects like the Cloaca Maxima and public venues that symbolized Rome's emerging grandeur. Servius Tullius implemented reforms that organized citizens by wealth for taxation and military service, strengthening social structure, while Tarquinius Superbus' tyranny led to the monarchy's downfall. Collectively, these 7 kings transformed Rome from scattered hilltop villages into a functioning city-state, blending conquest, law, religion, and infrastructure. Their reigns established patterns of leadership, civic duty, and resilience that would echo throughout the Republic and Empire. Rome's monarchy came to a dramatic end with the tyranny of Tarquinius Superbus, the last of the 7 kings. His rule, marked by cruelty, disregard for the Senate, and concentration of power, alienated the Roman people. The scandal involving his son, Sextus Tarquinius, who violated Lucretia, a noblewoman of Rome, became the catalyst for revolt. Lucretia's tragic death ignited outrage, and her story inspired Lucius Junius Brutus to lead the Roman citizens in rebellion. The people rose up, forcing the Tarquin family into exile in 509 BC, ending over 2 centuries of kingship. In the aftermath, Rome established a new system of governance, the Republic. Power was deliberately distributed to prevent any single individual from dominating. 2 consuls were elected annually, sharing authority equally, each capable of vetoing the other's decisions. The Senate remained a key advisory body, guiding policy and maintaining continuity, while popular assemblies gave citizens a limited voice in lawmaking. A temporary dictatorship could be appointed in emergencies, but its authority was strictly confined to 6 months. This new system reflected Rome's lessons from monarchy: concentrated power breeds corruption, while shared responsibility fosters stability. The birth of the Republic introduced a political culture based on negotiation, compromise, and civic duty. Ordinary citizens gained representation through institutions like the tribunes of the plebs, ensuring that both patricians and plebeians had roles in shaping the city's future. The fall of the monarchy and the establishment of the Republic set the stage for centuries of Roman expansion, lawmaking, and the development of a society where ambition and duty were balanced in the pursuit of collective strength. With the establishment of the Republic, Rome faced the challenge of balancing power between the elite patricians and the common plebeians. The patricians, descendants of the city's founding families, controlled most of the land, wealth, and political offices. Meanwhile, plebeians, farmers, laborers, and craftsmen worked the fields, paid taxes, and served in the army, yet had limited political influence. This growing imbalance created tension that threatened the city's stability. The plebeians' frustrations reached a boiling point in 494 BC when they staged a mass withdrawal from the city, known as the First Secession to the Sacred Mount. Refusing to fight in Rome's wars, they demanded protection from unfair laws and debt slavery. The patricians, facing the risk of military vulnerability, were forced to negotiate. This compromise resulted in the creation of the tribune of the plebs, officials elected to defend the interests of ordinary citizens. Tribunes had the power to veto magistrates or senate actions harmful to the plebeians, and their persons were declared sacrosanct, meaning any attack on them was a serious crime. This system of checks and balances marked the beginning of a political culture in Rome where negotiation and compromise became essential. The Republic's institutions were flexible, allowing Rome to adapt to internal pressures without losing cohesion. Laws gradually became codified and accessible, culminating in the 12 Tables, which provided transparency and fairness to citizens. Through these reforms, Rome demonstrated that political inclusion, even limited, was not just a concession, but a source of strength. The early republic set a pattern: survival through compromise, unity forged through shared responsibility, and governance built on both tradition and practical innovation. As Rome solidified its early republic, it faced the challenge of expanding influence over neighboring communities in central Italy. The Latin towns, once allies bound by kinship and mutual defense, began to question Rome's growing dominance. Tensions culminated in the Latin War around 340 BC, a conflict that tested Rome's military and diplomatic abilities. At the decisive Battle of Vesuvius, Roman legions clashed with Latin forces in fierce hand-to-hand combat. Rome emerged victorious, breaking the unity of the Latin League but choosing an unusual approach to its former allies. Rather than destroying them, Rome absorbed the Latin towns into its growing network. Some received full citizenship, allowing them full participation in political life, while others were granted partial rights, maintaining trade and marriage privileges but limited voting power. This graded system of inclusion strengthened loyalty, turning potential rivals into partners. The same approach extended to other conquered regions, with Roman colonies, small settlements of citizens and allies establishing control over key roads and river crossings. These colonies spread Roman culture, law, and influence while acting as military outposts to deter rebellion. This strategy showcased Rome's distinctive approach to power. It combined military discipline with political pragmatism. By integrating conquered peoples rather than merely subjugating them, Rome built a foundation of stability that allowed for further expansion. Loyalty was rewarded, rebellion punished, and Roman influence spread without provoking total chaos. These early alliances and settlements set a pattern that would define Rome's rise from a city-state to the dominant power across Italy, demonstrating that Rome's success was as much about strategy and negotiation as it was about battlefield victories. As Rome's influence spread across central Italy, it encountered a formidable challenge in the Samnites, a proud and warlike people controlling the rugged Apennine Mountains. The Samnites were experienced in mountain warfare, using the terrain to their advantage and making traditional Roman formations difficult to execute. The First Samnite War began around 343 BC, triggered when the city of Capua, threatened by Samnite raids, appealed to Rome for assistance. This intervention pulled the young republic into a long and grueling struggle that would test its resilience and military adaptability. Rome suffered early setbacks, most famously during the Second Samnite War at the Palatine Forks in 321 BC, where Roman forces were trapped in a narrow mountain pass. Forced to pass under a symbolic yoke of spears, the army's surrender was a humiliation and a stark lesson in the limits of their strategy. However, Rome's response to defeat would become a hallmark of its future success. The Republic adapted quickly. Roads were constructed through mountainous terrain to secure supply lines, new colonies were founded to block enemy movements, and military discipline was strengthened. Through persistence and innovation, Rome eventually subdued the Samnites after decades of intermittent warfare. The Third Samnite War 298–290 BC involved nearly all of Italy, with a coalition of Etruscans, Umbrians, and other tribes attempting to halt Roman expansion. At the decisive Battle of Sentinum in 295 BC, Roman legions demonstrated the effectiveness of disciplined strategy and unity, overcoming both formidable enemies and harsh terrain. These wars forged a Roman military that valued organization, adaptability, and endurance, setting the stage for Rome's eventual dominance over the Italian peninsula. By the late 4th century BC, Rome had strengthened its military and political structures, enabling it to assert dominance over central Italy. With the Samnites subdued, attention turned to remaining regional powers, particularly the Etruscans in the north and the Umbrians in the central highlands. These groups had once been major players in the Italian peninsula, with urbanized societies, skilled craftsmen, and strong fortifications. Rome faced not just their armies, but the challenge of unifying a patchwork of independent cities and tribes under a single authority. Rome approached these conflicts with a combination of diplomacy, military innovation, and strategic colonization. Key battles demonstrated the Republic's growing tactical sophistication, while defeated communities were often absorbed rather than destroyed. Some towns received full Roman citizenship, allowing them to participate in political life, while others were granted partial rights, enabling trade and intermarriage but limiting political influence. This graded system of inclusion created loyalty among newly incorporated peoples and minimized resistance. The final consolidation of central Italy came after a series of decisive battles against coalitions of Etruscan, Umbrian, and remaining Samnite forces. Rome's ability to adapt, maintain discipline, and integrate conquered peoples transformed the Republic from a regional power into a dominant force across the peninsula. By 290 BC, Rome controlled nearly all of central Italy, its legions disciplined and experienced, its network of colonies securing roads, rivers, and trade routes. This period of consolidation laid the foundation for the Republic's expansion beyond Italy and established political and military models that would guide Rome for centuries. With central Italy securely under Roman control by the late 3rd century BC, the Republic began to turn its attention outward. Across the Mediterranean, Carthage had grown into a powerful maritime empire, dominating trade routes and controlling settlements in North Africa, Spain, and Sicily. At the same time, Greek colonies in southern Italy and Sicily maintained thriving cities with strong economies, rich culture, and well-trained armies. These regions offered both opportunity and challenge for an ambitious Rome seeking to extend its influence. Rome's initial expansion was cautious but assertive. The Republic relied on its disciplined legions, flexible tactics, and the strategic placement of colonies to secure supply lines in key locations. Conflicts arose when local disputes drew Rome into confrontations with established powers. The city-state of Messana in Sicily, threatened by the Mamertines, appealed to Rome for protection, pulling the Republic into its first overseas military engagement. Soon after, Carthage viewed Rome's involvement as a threat to its regional dominance, setting the stage for the First Punic War. These early conflicts tested Rome's ability to wage war beyond the Italian peninsula. The Republic adapted by building a fleet, learning naval warfare, and establishing garrisons on strategic islands. The campaigns also showcased Rome's approach to diplomacy, forming alliances with local communities, absorbing willing cities into its sphere, and using a combination of force and negotiation to secure long-term loyalty. By engaging Carthage and the Greek colonies, Rome transitioned from a regional power into a Mediterranean contender. These early external campaigns set the precedent for the Republic's later global ambitions and demonstrated that Rome's expansion would rely as much on adaptability and governance as on battlefield prowess. Rome's growing power inevitably brought it into conflict with Carthage, the dominant maritime empire of the Western Mediterranean. The First Punic War 264–241 BC began over control of Sicily, a rich and strategically important island. Rome, traditionally a land-based power, faced the challenge of Carthage's superior navy. To meet this threat, the Romans rapidly built a fleet, innovated with new naval tactics such as the corvus boarding device, and trained their soldiers for sea combat. Despite initial inexperience, Rome's persistence and adaptability allowed them to win key battles and ultimately secure Sicily as their first province outside the Italian peninsula. The Second Punic War 218–201 BC is famous for Hannibal's audacious march across the Alps, bringing his elephants and army into Italy. Hannibal's victories at Tribia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae inflicted severe losses on Rome, yet the Republic refused to surrender. Roman resilience, strategic retreats, and alliances with other Italian communities allowed them to slowly wear down Hannibal's forces. Meanwhile, Roman generals like Scipio Africanus took the fight to Carthage itself, culminating in the decisive Battle of Zama, where Rome emerged victorious and Carthage was forced to surrender significant territory and military power. The Third Punic War 149–146 BC marked the final destruction of Carthage. Rome's complete conquest of its rival sent a clear message: the Republic would tolerate no competition for dominance in the Western Mediterranean. These wars solidified Rome's reputation for military discipline, strategic patience, and relentless ambition. They also transformed the Republic from a regional power into a Mediterranean superpower, paving the way for further expansion into Greece, North Africa, and beyond. By the 1st century BC, Rome had grown from a regional power into a sprawling republic controlling vast territories across the Mediterranean. With expansion came new challenges: managing distant provinces, addressing social inequality, and maintaining loyalty among the army and citizens. Wealth and land concentrated in the hands of a few elite families, while small farmers and common citizens struggled, leading to social unrest and political tension. Ambitious generals such as Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla used their military successes to gain political power, often bypassing traditional republican checks and balances. The Republic's institutions began to strain under the pressure. The Senate, once the central guiding body, found itself contending with increasingly powerful individuals who commanded personal armies. Civil wars erupted, and alliances shifted unpredictably. Julius Caesar emerged as a central figure, a brilliant general whose campaigns in Gaul expanded Rome's influence and wealth. His crossing of the Rubicon River in 49 BC symbolized the end of republican restraint, triggering a conflict that ultimately led to his dictatorship. Though Caesar's assassination in 44 BC briefly restored the illusion of republican governance, his death plunged Rome into another round of civil wars. Out of this chaos arose Augustus, formerly Octavian, who skillfully consolidated power while maintaining the appearance of republican institutions. He became the first emperor, marking the transition from republic to empire. Rome's political structure transformed, but its military discipline, civic traditions, and cultural values endured. The empire's centralized authority enabled Rome to govern vast territories efficiently, expand trade networks, and leave a lasting legacy that would shape Western civilization for centuries. As we reach the end of our journey through the rise and transformation of Rome, it is clear that this city's story is far more than dates and battles. From humble huts on the Palatine Hill to the grandeur of an empire spanning continents, Rome's history is a testament to resilience, ambition, and the enduring power of ideas. Every challenge Rome faced, whether internal conflict, social unrest, or foreign conquest, shaped the principles, institutions, and culture that would influence civilizations for millennia. Rome's legacy lives on in law, architecture, language, and governance. It reminds us that great achievements are rarely inevitable. They are earned through struggle, vision, and unity. Whether through the myths of Romulus and Remus, the disciplined legions of the Republic, or the political genius of its emperors, Rome teaches lessons about leadership, adaptation, and the importance of balancing power with responsibility. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through over 2 millennia of history. I hope this story of Rome has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore more about the civilizations that shaped our world. Stay curious, keep learning, and I will see you in the next adventure through history.